speaks first to Republican presidential candidate Bobby Jindal on what he is not really liking what he's hearing thus far. That this is, and Governor, always a pleasure to have you, that this is really Republicans' fault. What do you make of that?
Neil, it's great to be back with you. Look, he's the commander-in-chief. He helped to create the void that led to ISIS being able to strengthen. He called them the JV team. He has twice admitted he had no strategy to defeat ISIS. I hope when he comes out, I don't expect him, but I hope he comes out and says is he's taking the political handcuffs off the military. He's listening to the military advisors. He will give them the resources, the support to win, to hunt down and kill these terrorists. He doesn't even like saying the words radical Islamic terrorists. We need to stop leading from behind. We need to play to win. We need to crush ISIS and give encouragement to our Sunni allies. We're in this conflict to win this conflict. Remember the failed red line with Assad. I think it discouraged a lot of Sunnis that wanted to work with us, a lot of Sunni countries. Secondly, I'd like to hear him say that he's going to arm the Kurds. They've been effective at protecting Christian and other religious minorities. For whatever reasons, this president, this administration has been reluctant to arm and train them directly.
But I think what he's saying, Governor, as well, is that, well, a lot of that might be true. I don't think he'd agree with all your points there. But that Republicans have tied his hands, making it difficult, not approving his appointments or just sitting on their hands and letting this go by, and then criticizing his fight against ISIS when the folks he needs to lead that fight aren't being approved. Does he have a point?
No, well, look, Neil, even in his authorization of the use of military force, he went to the Congress and said, let's give me a ban on ground troops. Let's give me a 3-year deadline. He is the only commander-in-chief I know who tells the enemy what we won't do. I wish he would be as hard on the enemy as he is on his Republican critics here at home. This is ridiculous. He's our commander-in-chief. He twice has said he didn't have a strategy, and then somebody from the White House has to come out and say, well, the president didn't mean what he actually said. It's clear to our enemies, it's clear to our friends, he doesn't have a strategy. It's clear that this leading from behind hasn't worked. I wish he would try peace through strength. Let's try something different. Let's actually show our friends they can trust us, show our enemies they need to fear and respect us. Yes, we need to crush ISIS. The other news this week, though, is we're hearing from Secretary Kerry they may be getting close to a bad deal with Iran. Look, I'm just waiting for Secretary Clinton to evolve with the polls and disavow this foreign policy of appeasement. They could start a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. As bad as ISIS is, and ISIS is very bad, allowing Iran to become a nuclear power could encourage Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey to get their own nuclear weapons, to buy them from Pakistan. Talk about the potential for an Armageddon. Talk about the potential for mass genocide by having these multiple countries with nuclear power.
Well, on Iran, though, Governor, but on Iran, you mentioned that. I mean, and the hope is that if there is such a deal, that it would have very tough enforcement provisions in there, that Iran couldn't hide places where it might be storing nuclear stockpiles and the rest. Do you think that would be enough to allay criticism that Iran has opened essentially its entire country open for inspection, and that would be a crucial component of any deal?
Well, this is what I wish the president would ask for, and this is what he has to ask for to get a good deal. Anytime, anywhere inspections, absolutely. They have to give up all their enriched uranium. They have to give up all their enriching capacity, including the centrifuges, cut off a pathway to the plutonium device. They have to give up their ties to terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. They got to recognize the right of Israel to exist, release their American prisoners. Once they do that, then and only then would you have a gradual lifting of sanctions, not this immediate lifting. Neil, the problem is the president's not even asking for that anymore. He started saying they had to give up their enrichment capacity and their centrifuges. Now he's saying they can keep thousands of centrifuges. Now he's saying they can lift these sanctions before they cut off their ties to terrorism. You don't hear him talking about Iran recognizing Israel's right to exist. This is a regime chanting death to America, death to Israel. And we're talking about allowing them to keep their R&D capabilities. We're talking about allowing them to keep thousands of centrifuges. This is a bad deal. I think a bad deal is worse than no deal. I think this president should say very clearly to the Iranian regime, we are not going to allow you to become a nuclear power. These are the conditions you have to meet. Every option is on the table to stop you. I think this is one of the reasons Prime Minister Netanyahu and others are growing more and more fearful. It is obvious to the Iranian regime and others this president wants to deal so badly, he may be willing to take a very, very bad deal. And again, Secretary Clinton was the architect of this. I'm just waiting for her to evolve, just as she's evolved on other issues, as she sees how bad this deal becomes, even though she was at the center of this policy of appeasement.
Now, Donald Trump, a challenger on the presidential Republican stakes level, has said that he would not even be negotiating with Iran at this point. If he were to become the nominee, Governor, would you support him?
Well, Neil, I'm working very hard to make sure he doesn't become the nominee and I become the nominee. I'm working
Is he
hard
dividing
to
the party,
get the
Governor?
nomination.
Do you think he's dividing the party?
Look, I think the more choices for voters, the better. I didn't agree with his comments. I don't like to view people as members of ethnic groups or economic groups. I view people as individuals.
Which
I do think we need to secure the border.
The comments about Mexicans?
Yes. Now, look, I do think we need to secure the border, and I do think that a strong immigration policy says people should come here legally, learn our language, learn our values. They should roll up their sleeves and get to work. I'm tired of the hyphenated Americans. We need to insist on assimilation, integration. We're not African Americans, Indian Americans, poor or rich Americans. We're all Americans. This president's tried too hard to divide us. But, Neil, I'm also not for the D.C. establishment types trying to clear the field or handpick our candidates. Let the voters decide. I think an open contest is great. Unlike Hillary Clinton,
well, the reason why I say
Republicans
that,
roping
I'm
off
sorry,
reporters.
Governor, but the reason why I say that is that there are many of your colleagues who feel that he is giving a bad name to Republicans on these issues. He might or might not be, but they feel that he is sort of tarnishing the Republican brand. Do you agree with that? Do you think he is making a mockery of the process, or is he raising some good points?
Well, look, I disagree with his comments, but I think it's a free country. I think the voters get to decide. I don't know if the establishment trying to kick anybody out or clear the field. I think let voters decide. I'm one that says let's embrace our own principles. Jeb Bush says let's be willing to lose the primary in order to win the general. I disagree with that. That's the establishment saying hide our principles, try to make the left and the media like us. It has never worked before. It's not going to work this time. Neil, look, we're on the path towards socialism. They're trying to turn the American dream into the European nightmare. We need to stop that. The hour is late, but it's not too late. We can turn this around. We can dominate this century, but it's not inevitable. So I think the more the merrier. Obviously, I think I'm the best qualified candidate. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running. But let the voters decide, not the smart guys in D.C.
You got a lot of company, Governor. We're down to about a little more than a minute before the president speaks, sir, and you'll maybe be in that position yourself not too long from now. But do you think it's too crowded a field? Do you think that maybe this means no one's going to be nominated or have enough delegates by convention time in Cleveland?
Oh, look, I think the voters will sort this all out. My sense in New Hampshire, Iowa, these other states, is they're asking good questions. I'm the only one offering a detailed plans. I think they want a doer, not a talker. We got plenty of talkers running. We got a talker in the White House. I've cut my state budget 26%. We've cut 30,000 state government jobs. We're a top 10 state for job creation. I think they want somebody who's going to grow the private sector economy, not measure success in the government sector. It's either or. And so I think I'm biased towards governors, those that have run things. We've got a first-time senator in the White House. You know, we can't afford any more on-the-job training. We need to elect somebody, not just who talks the talk, but somebody who's actually delivered results.
All right, you got ISIS and you got the Greek crisis, big foreign policy crisis. In the end, do you think the president is mishandling it?
Absolutely. And look, Greece is going to be, the United States could be the next Greece if we're not careful. We are spending too much, $18 trillion of debt, more taxes, more regulations, no plan to pay it back. The Greeks gave us democracy. Now they're showing us how to kill democracy.
If you were president, would you just let Greece go?
Well, look, that'll be up to the EU. Absolutely, there should be no American taxpayer dollars for a bailout. There should be no American taxpayer involvement. This is now between the Greeks and the EU. We've got, Puerto Rico's facing a similar situation. No American taxpayer dollars. But make no mistake, before we get on our high horse, if we don't reform our entitlement programs, if we don't shrink the size of the government, we don't cut back the EPA, we don't cut back taxes, that's going to be us. We are spending more than we take in, and in D.C. you got a bunch of math deniers.
President Jindal would not be bailing out or offering financial support for Puerto Rico, just as it wouldn't indirectly for any foreign sovereign government like Greece that is an ally and a friend. You would not, just to be clear.
Absolutely not. I know the governor of Puerto Rico is trying to put politics in this, trying to threaten presidential candidates. That's ridiculous. Those are the same leaders that got them in this trouble in the first place. They need to cut government, grow their economy. Neil, I'm worried about bailing out America. Nobody's going to be left to bail us out. We've got to get our own house in order. We've got massive debts. This president created a new entitlement program when we can't afford the ones we've got. That makes no sense. And so, Greece is looking to Europe. Puerto Rico is looking everywhere. Nobody's going to bail America out. We're the last hope for the free world. Let's get our own house in order. Let's grow our own private sector economy. Let's stop mortgaging our children's and grandchildren's futures.
All right. Governor, thank you very, very much.